I'm Annie Sloan.
And I'm Tristan Merriam.
And this is The Colourist,
a podcast all about colour and its influence on our lives. Well, I think we should start this episode by explaining what happened when we were just having some lunch downstairs, where we were saying, okay, we're recording the next episode, Coco, after lunch, and that is going to be all about Coco Chanel. And you also have a colour called Coco.
No, you didn't. You said this
one.
No.
Well, I am going to admit my failings. And I said, wait a second. Coco the colour, that's not named after Coco Chanel. And Annie was like, yes, it is. It's spelt the same. And I just had not put the two and two together. Even though I knew we were doing today's podcast on Coco Chanel, I think I said to you, so what colour are we focusing on?
That's
and you
said
Coco. And I'm thinking, what? How is this?
You've never seen a face look so shocked. Vincent and I were in laughter. Because
who is this person that's been invited to do this?
Yeah.
I had no idea. For someone who's a chalk paint fanatic, I just did not associate Coco, the colour, with Coco Chanel. I don't know how I've missed it, but I've missed it.
Well, lots of people do spell Coco as the chocolate drink. But
no, we're not talking about that though.
C-O-C-O-A.
And I even knew that. I know the spelling of Coco. You know, I see it every day in my shop.
It's not Coco the clown either.
No.
Or Coco Pops.
Right. No. We are talking about Coco Chanel and the colour Coco and all the things associated with Coco Chanel, which is again, a bit like Frida in the last episode. This is a huge topic. I mean, we could talk about this for hours. Mm-hmm. But I'm intrigued to know, first and foremost, how the colour Coco came about and how that was influenced by Coco Chanel.
Well, there's two things. I was looking for a neutral, quite a warm neutral, because I have French linen, which is slightly a cooler neutral. And I was looking for something warm. And I thought of that sort of colour. When I was a child, my mother had Coco Chanel style, not actual suits, but she had those boucle suits, which were, boucle was a sort of a fabric which had little, boucle means curl in French, so it has little loops.
Yes, I know what you mean.
And it looks a bit curly, beautiful fabric. And she had, and it's often, there were jackets which don't have collars, they're high, and they're edged with a sort of a thicker edging. And the fabric is usually one colour, and the edging is a slightly different colour, and they're beautiful. And I remember seeing my mother in one of these and just thinking she looked gorgeous. And you'd have a little blouse underneath, just lovely. And so that was my thoughts. And interestingly, Coco is known for introducing neutrals to the palette, not to decorating so much, but for dressing, for clothes, for fashion. So before that, people didn't really dress in neutrals.
What did they dress in? A naive question, but to me that's quite a strange thing. Fairly recently, to introduce neutrals, you'd think neutrals would come first, if anything.
No, people wore colours, lots more colours. So if you think about the past, you know, there are people in all sorts of colours, but they didn't tend, white would have been probably weddings, even then not, and black was definitely for funerals. She was amazing because she introduced, the little black dress.
Yeah.
So black became incredibly fashionable and incredibly like the little black dress that you'd wore to your...
Oh, yes, I've got several.
Have you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, lovely.
I'm not wearing it today, though. I should have, shouldn't I?
So this would be in the 1920s. And before that, black would have definitely been a funereal colour. So she introduced that. And she also introduced the whole look of quite pared back. It wasn't fluffy and colourful and lots of bits, and it would be the string of pearls probably, and much neater and slightly more masculine, actually, if you think about it. She was very interested in the military clothes from the World War,
tailored
and little boxy things like handbags. That whole thing, it's so different, and it was groundbreaking, incredible. So introducing neutrals, and and she had quite a limited color palette all the time, and all those things were just incredible. It was groundbreaking.
So when you introduced Coco as a colour, that was inspired by one of her neutrals?
Yes.
Was that a colour you saw in her designs?
Yes, I mean, that is a colour she used... kind of... it's called beige. I mean,
beige, greige, yeah.
Beige. They did call it beige. I know it's very unfashionable to say that colour in interior decorating. Now people tend to say taupe or mushroom or greige, whatever. But no, that was called a beige. But I just made a colour and thought, what does it remind me of? And I just thought, I know what that is. That's my mother's Chanel suit.
How amazing.
And I always loved it. I was sort of really classy.
And your mother was called?
And my mother was Dolores.
Dolores. We've been speaking about this. But you didn't call the colour after her? You didn't name the colour after her, rather?
No, I think that wouldn't have been her.
She was trumped by Coco.
Coco, definitely. My mother was much more colourful than that.
But that's so lovely that came from that.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to put this out there and admit that I don't know much about Coco Chanel. I probably do know more than I give myself credit for, but after researching this and us talking about doing this episode, I need to learn a lot more. And I would imagine there'll be a lot of people listening who probably feel the same. She is a household name.
Totally.
And you obviously associate her with fashion and, you know, all of those things. But I think you're going to bring more to the table than people probably know about. And obviously with an art and an interior influence running alongside the fashion.
She is probably... I mean, I'm really knocked out by her, actually. She's more than I ever thought. I did know quite a lot about her, and there's some quite murky stuff. And so, you know, you might be left with it. I don't want anyone to not like her after this.
Okay.
Because there are some bits you might not like. But I'm taking a look on her as someone who was very, very innovative. I will tell you one thing which I think is extraordinary. She introduced the idea of having a tanned skin, sunbathing.
What? I mean, when are we talking? What date are we in?
Before 20s, before the war.
1920s.
I think about 20s.
And she's introducing sunbathing.
So what happened is, before that, people would have a white skin. If you were a fashionable lady in Paris and you were European, what you wanted was a white skin. So forgive me for anybody who doesn't have a white skin. This is not meant in any bad way. So people had a white skin because that would indicate that you didn't work outside in the fields, that you always wore a hat when you weren't outside, you would always be protected, you'd wear an umbrella, a little parasol, so skin would never get
sun-kissed.
picked up. Never get sun-kissed, exactly right. Anyway, what happened is that she was very successful at this point. So it might have been late 20s, early 30s, I'm not sure. I'm terrible with dates. But she went to the south of France, did Coco, and she was on a boat and she got suntanned, basically.
Obviously, in the south of France, on a boat.
Her skin.
Yes, okay.
But she came off the boat and everybody noticed. And she, being the person she was, went, yep, that's it. I am brown. Look what I've done.
And as she was already influential, it's one of those silly things. Let's all get a tan.
We're all going to get a tan now. Yeah. So then you'll see from about that time, people lying and getting suntans. So that was all new then. I think that is phenomenal.
Well, that really...
But of course, it's turned around now. People think don't sit in the sun. But there we are.
But that changed the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, quite literally, sunbathing is such a big thing. Yeah. And for it to be accepted and to have that tan and not be seen as working class, or for want of a better word, because I'm assuming that's what people
I suppose there would be a class thing,
negatively associating with it, is incredible.
Yeah.
I just think...
So 3 things I've already said. Little black dress, introducing neutrals, and having a suntan.
God.
All three of those things were incredible. Now, she came from a really, really poor background. Her mother died when she was 8. There were 6 children. I don't think her parents were married, not right at the beginning anyway. I think they might have in the end. Her mother died of tuberculosis. They were so poor. I think she was a washerwoman and he was a something, I can't remember. And so her mother died. They were put into, the boys went into, I think they went to work, and the girls were put into an orphanage run by nuns. It's where she learned to sew, which is interesting.
Crucial piece of the story.
Yeah. And she's obviously good at it because she enjoyed it. And then she leaves. She works as a singer in Vichy, which is interesting as well. Vichy, France, if you know anything about history. And then to the Second World War. And then she went to Paris. And from then, I think she was a great opportunist. She came from a poor family with nothing, but she was very willing to work. And I think she was probably, I don't know whether I'd like to call her a manipulator, but I think she was...
In a positive way.
Well, yes, yeah. She worked her magic with all sorts of people. She was a singer, and then eventually she got into, somehow or another, meeting someone doing that who was rich and backed her, and she started sewing things. I think she first of all sewed... uniforms.
Right.
That all developed, and she met all sorts of artistic and creative people. She did some stuff for the Ballet Russe and for all of a lot of theatre crowd and people. We were talking about Schiaparelli. She met Schiaparelli, mingled
with these people.
Yeah, that might have been a bit later, but that's her sort of milieu, quite upper class, and working with people who have got money. Started designing clothes for them. I mean, it's not very clear how she did all this, but so I think she must have been very, very bright, very able, very good at talking herself into jobs and people and things.
She was determined, probably, to create a better life than what she'd had growing up, I suppose.
Yeah, I imagine. She was being backed by somebody, and she got this wonderful house and building, workshops, whatever it is, still there today, owned by the same company, same man, same family who she started with, who was called Wertmeier, and it's now owned by someone with the same name in the family. So I think great-grandson or grandson.
That's incredible that we're talking 100 years, and it's still, a family business of sorts.
Of sorts, because there's a huge story in between. So at the outbreak of the Second World War, she'd already become quite friendly with the Germans. She was already talking with people.
In terms of her career and her business, or her private life?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Well, yes. I think particularly at the beginning it was her private life. They have to remember that Wertmeier, I don't know how you say it, was a Jewish family. It's a Jewish family. And it turns out that she was having an affair and lots of relationships and was probably a Nazi agent.
Right.
For not just the SS, but the one step above, which I think is called the SD, which actually I've only just found out about that. And now I've thought always that these were just stories, but I have been doing a bit more digging in, and it doesn't seem they were stories. It seems she really was.
So that's hugely damaging for her career and her reputation.
It really did.
Then and now. I mean, and I know you said you want people to go away from this thinking, wow, what an amazing person, which we will. But how
also
did she come back?
the company is actually owned by the same company.
Yes.
So what he did, he was very clever, Wertmeier. He then went to America. The Nazis came in. He realised what was happening. She tried to take the company from him, and she thought he'd gone to America, and she thought, it's all mine now. But
again, an opportunity.
but he'd been very clever, and he had made some sort of deal, I don't know what, with somebody else who was a French Christian. So Nazis couldn't do anything about that because they could in quotes, take businesses away from Jews, but they couldn't they wouldn't have any reason to, according to their whatever rules.
Yeah.
So he went off to America and came back after the war and regained his company.
From her?
Well, not exactly. He made a deal with her. He needed her because she was
the brand, the face.
The face, the brand. She was, everything. Whatever you say about her, and this is always a problem with creative people who perhaps have the wrong political views or whatever. She was amazing. She did some incredible stuff. A lot of what she did was to free people. She wanted women to have much more freedom and autonomy, and that's what she believed in. So there's part of me going, yay, wow, amazing. And then she's like, I'm not so sure about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he needed her, and so they made a deal.
And she needed him.
And she needed him. Her reputation had been ruined, and it went on for a long time after the war. So she's still in court in the early 50s with various things that were happening. I'm not really sure the detail, but so she was in a bit of like, I don't know quite, how do I cope with all of this? So they made a deal. She had 10% of the company eventually, and he had 90% of the company.
Oh my gosh.
Eventually. But the company is incredible.
That seems hugely unfair.
Well, if it had been an unsuccessful company, but it's been an incredibly successful company. I mean, I don't know. I
know, but 10 versus 90, I would have thought her being, the brains behind it and the person. That's crazy. Maybe I'm naive in that way. I don't know. But it's the financial investor that obviously gets the most. But crikey, yeah.
But also
unjust in my opinion, maybe.
Well, I'll tell you that the business is I don't know, turnover or success.
Yeah, 10% is probably more than
15 billion.
Okay. Well, I mean, I could cope with that. But
sure?
Gosh, so what's 90% then? That's incredible.
Yeah, so it's a very, 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 very successful business. But she had done him wrong right from the start. It could have been 50-50, I suspect.
But she blotted her copybook.
She did, and she did some bad things.
Right.
And she tried not to get him, there were lots of shenanigans, I think. Whether she knew I don't know. It does seem as though she knew what she was doing. But it sort
of corrected itself.
Yes,
They came to an agreement.
Yes.
And at this time, was that the height of her success? It only grew, I feel, as time went on.
Yes, but I mean, Chanel No. 5, the whole thing, the little black dress and all of that, the whole house. First of all, she went to go and live with her Nazi lover in after the war in Switzerland, where lots of Nazis went.
It's not going to do her many favours.
No, it didn't really. So you can't really go, what a shame.
No, you can't.
I mean, anyway, whatever. Someone like Wagner, classical musician who was a great Nazi lover, etc. And, there are many people I know, Jewish people, who just go, I'm really sorry, but I just love the music. And so they just move on. Now, other people go, no, I can't. So I think it's a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Personal choice. Yeah. And it's bound to evoke opinion, this topic.
Yeah, it's bound to. But I will say that I called it Coco without really taking very serious. I did know, I have to say, a little bit about the Jewish thing and the anti-Semitism and all the rest of it. But I actually thought it was a story put about, and I didn't believe it.
That's really interesting. And has anyone ever, remarked about this?
No, I don't.
Well, they probably, like me, they didn't put the two and two together.
Chanel are probably going to sue me now because I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I mean, it is common knowledge.
Yeah.
And, you can look on YouTube for videos about it. After the war, she did come back, and I think this is pretty good. She was 67 or something, or maybe 61. 1954, whatever she was then. She came back and decided she was going to come back and work and be a designer again, and because she'd run away from
So
it
there'd
all.
been a hiatus.
Yes.
How many years, roughly?
I think until
A
about
few?
1954.
From,
so after the war,
so quite a long time.
After the war, and she ran away, and she probably thought,
Right.
"Oh God, it ruined the business."
I see.
And
do you think it's a question of money talks? She was needing money, and
Could
the
have
business
been.
needed
very
rescuing.
creative person, and someone who wanted, maybe she just got bored in Switzerland. I don't know.
But she came back.
She came back, and that's when she grew the business again, and all those little gorgeous little suits went out there, and famously, I think this is very cool. She got loads of people wearing her suits again, including Jackie Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
And famously, Jackie Kennedy is wearing a Chanel suit when John F. Kennedy was shot in Dallas. So, that was that little pink suit. That was one of the colours that she had.
And
she was a very small
a
number
moment
of colours.
that threw that image all over the world.
All over the world.
And she happened to be wearing
a
Chanel suit, which is
and loads
timely.
She got lots and lots of people at that time, including Jane Fonda, all sorts of famous people wearing her suits.
So she wanted
clothes.
to empower women through fashion.
Did.
And so was she a feminist?
She never married. She never had children. She was very driven by her work and was very keen to succeed. Whether that's a feminist or not, I don't know.
No.
Before the word feminism, probably around, a little bit, but she certainly didn't waste time in sort of, I don't know, family life or anything like that. She looks quite hard when you see photographs.
I have seen photos, yes.
Very elegant, very beautiful. She must have been, she had a lot of lovers, a lot of, they all did.
We are choosing all of the people that have the most colourful private lives you've ever. We can only touch upon it on the podcast, but you can research yourselves.
Yes, do.
So you'll find some very interesting stories.
There's also talk, and I don't know, this again might just be completely bad, terrible gossip, but the name Coco comes from her taking certain substances.
Really?
Yes.
Because her name is Gabrielle.
Her real name is Gabrielle, but she was not called that. She was called Coco, probably from quite an early age, apparently, in Paris. So, yes. And she was known to inject opiates
into herself.
Yes.
I was thinking, where's this going? Into her clothes? Into the handbags? What's she injecting? Right. So she was she was a colourful character then.
Yes.
A force to be reckoned with.
Oh, I think I'd be petrified.
Absolutely.
Well, I was saying earlier, wasn't I, that I've been to 31 Rue Cabon. And it was after a long day in Paris, wandering around the shops and all the rest of it, and sightseeing. And I got there thinking, right, I'm going to go in. Oh no!
So you have arrived at Coco Chanel, the house where you can go in.
I can get. You can. I don't remember if you can, but I looked at it and I just thought, I can't. I'm just like one big hot sweaty mess.
Oh gosh!
And they will go, what is this?
Who is this who's turned up? Oh my God. So you've never been?
I've never been, but I have stood outside and looked at it. It's
a very sad story. I think we should go, and I say we. I did a subtle use of we. I think we should go.
Let's all
It's
go.
only Paris. It's not far. We could do a little recce, couldn't we? We'd go in our finest clothes. But we should, because it looks a very inspiring place to visit.
Absolutely.
Her apartment or whatever it is beautiful. It's
utterly
very
beautiful.
elegant.
And actually something in this room.
Yes, to us.
You're going to take.
So I'm sat here now and looking at two items in your room that I didn't know when I first came here, but have clearly been influenced by Coco Chanel. So tell us what they are.
Well, they're my chandeliers. I don't know what they're called, chandeliers.
Yeah.
I mean, they're two hanging lights. And they are sort of palm fronds, and they come down. There's two layers of these palm fronds, and then some lights that come up. I'll show photographs of them. And they are 1960s and just very French. She loved this style, this palm frond, and she made, in her apartment, she had these incredible tables.
Yes, with the sort of the base of the table as the palms.
Yes, in gold, mine are gold.
Yeah.
And
real gold, obviously.
Oh, mine are real
solid
gold.
gold.
No. I think that's part of what they are actually, is that they're not gold. They are actually metal, carved and cut metal.
They're very beautiful.
I think they're just lovely.
And they sit underneath some. Well, each room has a different ceiling rose, but that makes them even more amazing.
Yes, very wonkily put up because we can't make them go straight for some reason. God
that's
knows
part
why.
of the charm.
But it's part of the charm, yeah. And I've always wanted to see if I could get one of those tables, but they're always an arm and a leg.
And are they? Naive question. Are these palm-shaped pieces very associated with Coco Chanel, or is it just she liked that style?
So I'm going to put a photograph of her Paris apartment, which is in the Rue Cambon, and she has two things there, which I think is extraordinary. One is these wonderful
coffee tables,
which are glass on top, so you can see through, and underneath this sort of arrangement of ferns. Beautiful. All of these photographs, I'll just say, are on my Annie Sloan Instagram. So when this comes out, you can go there and have a look at them. And she's got that. Everything's in quite cool colours, quite a lot of black and a lot of gold. And also she's got two life-size figures of like fawns, which is odd, I think.
It is a little bit odd, but...
But they seem to work.
Yeah, well, I'm just sat next to a taxidermy heron, literally 20 centimetres from my head. So
that's Gordon.
Gordon,
my
not
heron.
Gordon the gopher, Gordon the heron.
Gordon the heron. Yeah.
Going back to it, was she as influential in interiors? Well, not as influential. Was she influential in interiors then? Is it because she was a personality, and so when people saw inside her home, they then, a bit like the sunbathing, wanted to emulate her style?
Yes.
Or did she have more of a role in any interior-based collaborations?
I don't think she had any actual role in anything, but I think because she was such a figure, she would do something like, she did perfume. I mean, Chanel No. 5 is phenomenal.
Gosh,
it's one of the perfumes that's gone on and on and on, and it's classic. You know, that shape of the bottle and the shape of,
I can smell it now, and I'm not a women's perfume connoisseur, but I know it.
Yeah,
and it's iconic.
It's iconic, and I think what she always did was make things very basic, took it right back, pared it back. So the little black dress, as I keep saying, the neutrals, this sort of style. Actually, these lights,
they're quite opulent.
They're quite opulent.
They're not pared back, are they?
But well, the only thing I would say, they're not dripping with chandelier
and
goblets and glass.
Yeah.
It's all quite simple.
Right.
And I think, I don't know whether I've made this up, but there's a sort of connection with Marie Antoinette, wanting things to look quite simple, and it's all natural and all the rest of it. I think I might have made that up, but there is a sort of connection there if I could only work it out. But it's not glittery and all the rest of it. She went on to do jewellery. It was a whole lifestyle, how to be Coco Chanel in a way.
Yeah, so she, and at the heart of that is her as a person that people idolised, or she was
could look up
a proper
to
celebrity in
real
terms
style.
of a star.
Incredible style. She was a stylist, and she didn't act, or she didn't. She was a singer at some point. God knows, she was good, but that wasn't what she was famous for. She was famous for being very cool, very beautiful. Not beautiful even, just very stylish.
Completely. And as her career developed and as the house grew, how involved was she in the actual making? Because it started off by saying she learned to sew, which I think is amazing. did that carry on, or is it a question of the more successful you get, the more she's the front of the business and the brand, or did she remain true at making and actually designing?
I think she would have she'd be someone there with an eye to detail. I reckon she would have had a huge... I don't know that, though.
No.
It's a good question. Karl Lagerfeld took it over. She died in 1971. She was 87 or something.
So, okay.
Great age.
So
and she was working right
years
to the
ago-ish. 55 years ago. 54 years ago. I'm trying to do the maths.
That's very true. Yes,
it's still going so strong, and that's credit to him for carrying it on, I suppose.
Yes. I don't know when those two C's.
No.
But that's, iconic. And that's something that I think no other fashion brand has got.
No, absolutely not. So we've spoken about the nudes and the beiges and the neutrals. Mm-hmm. There are a few other kind of brighter colours, and I'm just interested to hear how they played a part in her ranges, her designs rather. So pink we've spoken about with Jackie Kennedy. What about red?
Yes, that was one of her colours. So
how was that used?
I think it was really as an accent colour. Mm-hmm. So it was probably the red lipstick and all the rest of it, and the sort of the one bit of bright colour. So it was black, neutral, the beige, white,
pink, red. And I don't know, I've got this note in front of me, and I don't know if it's you that's written this or if this has come from somewhere, but it says, for me, this tone of red reflected the uncompromising boldness of Coco Chanel's character.
Yes. I think that I would say that too. Yes, I did forget about that. There is something, it's uncompromising. The pink always surprises me. And that maybe just would be her, I don't know, maybe her softness. I don't know. Or maybe it was just very commercial. Maybe people wanted it.
Well, I mean, if you're wearing a red, it's a shade that it says here could really intimidate and impress.
Yes.
So wearing red, you don't want to mess with someone wearing red.
No.
Never. Because it's a strong colour. And especially a woman in a design that's quite, I don't know if I'm getting this right, but militant and structured and tailored with red. Putting those two things together is for a strong woman.
Oh, yeah.
And in terms of your colour, Coco, this is, for a colour lover, it's unusual that I'd love a neutral so much, but I really enjoy using Coco. And I think I enjoy it the most when I combine it with brighter colours.
Yes.
That's why I use it.
And I think, I was going to say, and I forgot to say this, but actually the colour that when I first made it, I just put it with red, and it is phenomenal. It looks so good. Mm-hmm. So it's got a little bit of red in it, and the red just comes out. And it makes Empress Silk look incredible.
So if we were comparing it to an outfit, of Coco Chanel's, it might be all neutral, all in this cocoa beige colour, but with a red trim or a red button or something. Or and if we were doing a piece of furniture, you could do it largely in cocoa, and then you could just pick out tiny little details with some red.
Red trimming, red dots, red, I don't know, handles.
Yeah.
And it does look amazing.
And it would kind of emulate the style of Coco Chanel's clothes.
I think we've got to go and paint a piece of
Well, I do too.
And maybe a little bit of white, because I think the white in it actually separates the two colours out a little bit and makes it sing.
What other colours does it work well with?
Well, any of the bright colours, but actually I don't... I've only ever used it with really bright colours.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Well, gold, if we're thinking about how gold apartments.
Definitely, and black.
Yeah, definitely black. Black and gold would work very well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So furniture and I've actually not done it on a wall, but I've been wanting to do that for some time. Doing all sorts of colours with it. Oh, orange. Gorgeous.
Well, it's because it's got red in it that it works.
Yeah.
Scientifically, or maybe that's the wrong word, but technically is the right word. We've spoken a lot about what she accomplished and her. What was it about her that you admired? I mean, I think I know the answer, but we spoke previously about Frida Kahlo, and there was a lot about her as a person that was inspiring. What was it for you that has really inspired you from her her story, her legacy?
Well, I think it's a little bit similar to Frida Kahlo, is that they're pretty. They seem full of heart and warmth, but they're quite. I don't know. It's not going to say hard, but then they are focused. They are. I mean, I use the word unsentimental with Frida Kahlo, and maybe I feel the same with. She'd had a terrible life to begin with. She was, I don't know, terrible. Didn't have a mother. She was father abandoned her. She didn't have family really. She brought up in a with the nuns in the convent sewing. It might have been charming and lovely, but it would have probably been full of hugs and cuddles. And so that seemed to be. She's quite a hard woman.
And tenacious?
And tenacious, it's probably best word for her.
I think that's what I would think of. Yeah, I know I'm asking you, but I admire her tenacity.
Yes,
and both, if we're talking about Frida and Coco, they both had this drive, didn't they?
Yes.
They were very ambitious for themselves.
But very creative as well. I mean, I think that Coco is phenomenal. I mean, what she did and her ability to get where she did was incredible, and all the the things that we all now take for granted. And the funny thing is, she was wanting things for women and equality, or I don't know, equality, but maybe she wanted women's freedom. And now, of course, it's looked at as like a top brand, very smart, very upmarket, and she always worked in that. But she was sort of doing it for normal people like herself.
Which is something they should remember.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important thing moving forward. And it will be interesting, we won't be here, but in another 100, 200 years, will Coco Chanel still be a brand? Will it still be a house? Will it have stood the test of time even more? It'll be really interesting to see how that pans out.
Anyway, I think this might be controversial.
Go on.
So I'd love for people... No, I'm not going to say anything more controversial.
I thought you were about to say.
No, the whole episode might be.
Well, it is a little bit, but we're just stating facts and enlightening people.
Yeah, whatever I say is not going to make any difference too.
Well, I've learned so much about this. I think it's been a fascinating episode, and I've really enjoyed Frida as well. Two very strong women, which goes hand in hand with colour and creativity. But we're not moving on to another strong female next.
No.
We are going to go in a different direction.
Yes. So I already mentioned the Ballet Russe, and it's Paris. Again, 1920s.
So we're sticking in the same... Well, there's something about 1920s Paris.
It's actually Russia.
Okay.
It starts with Russia, and then it with someone called Sergei Diaghilev, and he starts the Ballet Russe and goes to Paris, and so the story goes, and we have some of the most exciting designs that you can imagine. And the connection is that Coco Chanel worked for the Ballet Russe, did some designs, which I'll post, which are lovely. Very simple, very lovely, always clean and beautiful. But the Ballet Russe itself I think you're going to love. If you don't know, look up, everybody, if you want to, look up Leon Bakst, B-A-K-S.
And this is a teaser for the next episode.
It's a teaser for
Leon
the next.
Bakst.
And we're going to do Barcelona Orange, Ballet Russe, and all of that. Really exciting.
Well, I hope that whets your appetite. It's exciting.
And I'll bring one woman in, and that'll be Dame Laura Knight. She's a British artist.
So people can do some homework before the next episode comes out, and they'll know more than me at this rate.
Yes, I'm telling you off.
Well, thank you for sharing, Annie. That's been a really fascinating episode, and thank you to everyone who's been listening. As always, please subscribe, like, and follow, and do all of the things with our podcast.
We would love more reviews. We're not getting enough reviews at the moment. Maybe we'll hate it, but we do get lots of little messages.
But we enjoy it, so who cares?
But we get lots of messages on Facebook and Instagram saying how much they love it. And I'm just saying, please, please, if you do. I know it's a bit annoying, but it will help us because we're only tiny at the moment. We want to rise up the ranks of podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. But until next time, we will say our goodbyes and look forward to Barcelona Orange as our next colour.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.